Hello and welcome to TVC News at 1. Our top stories this hour. Justice Binta Ayako withdraws from trial of Nnamdi Kanu after request by IPOB leader. Nigeria secures 200 million financing for mortgage in the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Outside Nigeria, thousands flee Lebanon as death toll on Israeli border strikes near 500. Sports Chelsea kick off EFL Cup campaign with a clash against League Two side Barrow at Stamford Bridge. Justice Binta Ayako of the Federal High Court in Abuja has withdrawn from the trial of IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu. Justice Ayako's decision followed an earlier request by Mr. Kanu asking her to recuse herself from the trial over allegations that she refused to obey orders of the Supreme Court. Nnamdi Kanu's file will now be sent to the Chief Judge for reassignment to another judge. Mr. Kanu earlier ordered his counsel, Alo Ejimako, to sit down while he stood from the dock to address Justice Ayako.
How are you doing?
Not very well. As long as justice will be done at the end of the day, that's what bothers me. For justice to be done. I cannot be tried in violation of a key provision of the Constitution of Nigeria, Section 36. It's as simple as that. The Constitution of Nigeria says any determination made by the Supreme Court is binding on a lower court. So I was actually surprised that a high court have refused to obey or abide by the determination of a Supreme Court judgment.
When we apply for restoration of the bail, we made the argument that this is part of the lead judgment. The opposing counsel made a contrary argument. She never made a ruling on that. She dodged the question. She never made a ruling. What she said in open court today was a surprise to us. If she had addressed this issue on the record that it wasn't part of the lead judgment, we would have taken it head on.
Nigeria's participation at the 79th session of the ongoing United Nations General Assembly recorded the first success as the federal government received the support of United States Chamber of Commerce with a commitment of about $320 million in mortgage refinancing and women empowerment. TVC News State House correspondent Femi Akonde reports.
Vice President Kashim Shettima leads the federal government delegation representing President Bola Tinubu at this year's United Nations General Assembly. He met with other members of Nigeria's delegation to strategize on Nigeria's engagement in New York. Already, the federal government has secured an investment portfolio of $200 million in mortgage refinancing in Nigeria. The deal was sealed at a U.S.-Nigeria Executive Business Roundtable hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The sum of $100 million has been earmarked to finance SMEs in Nigeria, with particular interest in women empowerment. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce also announced that $20 million has been approved for a firm for processing of cashew nuts in the country. The American Chamber of Commerce says it is committed to working with Nigerians in the development and pursuit of sustainable economic policies. Nigeria's Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, reiterated President Bola Tinubu's commitment to an investor-friendly environment.
Africa as a continent should, for the very first time in the history of the United Nations, see that, look, that finally they have a voice, Mr. President, and in Nigeria, who is definitely making some authoritative statements.
Ahead of President Bola Tinubu's national statement at the United Nations General Assembly, to be delivered by Vice President Kashim Shettima, the Minister of Foreign Affairs led other members to brief the VP on the activities and itinerary lined up for him in New York. A meeting has also been scheduled with the Secretary General of the United Nations.
It's a speech that will resonate across Africa and the rest of the world. And of course, too, the Vice President too will be engaging with some multinationals. He'll be engaging with some heads of states too.
Subnationals from Nigeria are also exploring prospects and opportunities on the sidelines of the 79th session of the UN General Assembly.
We've listened to them. There are a few takeaways here. We need to take a closer look into them, and then through the Nigerian Governors Forum, we'll be getting back with them.
We just had a meeting now with a company that is in charge of energy, and they're really doing well, and they have the financial capacity to be able to partner with states like Nigeria. So it's an important thing.
There's a lot of interest being shown in the Nigerian economy, because we have what it takes to be a global player in the economic space.
Aside other heads of states lined up to meet with the Vice President, there are also scheduled meetings with the head of the African, Caribbean and Pacific states. The President of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director General of the International Atomic Agency, and other multinational companies. Femi Akonde, TVC News, New York.
And back here in Nigeria, let's turn attention to the presidential villa, Abuja, where the Federal Executive Council has approved the setting up of a disasters relief fund. The fund will make provision for quick response to victims of disasters across the country. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edu, explained that a fund will source finances from the 3 tiers of government and the private sector for flood victims. This development comes as the Federal Executive Council also constituted a technical committee to reassess the dams across the country.
The Federal Executive Council have constituted a committee to look into not only the Alao Dam, but other dams in the country, to reassess them and come up with recommendations that will solve the challenge of flooding, and also putting into use the available dams we have.
Mr. President's views that we need, in this era of climate change, of climate events, as well as the fact that from time to time there will be, no matter the prevention measures, there will be disasters that will occur, that we need to build greater resilience in the form of a substantial disaster relief fund, separate from the agencies that actually intervene physically. This will focus on the financing.
And joining me for more discussion on this is a climate environment campaigner for environmental rights action, Babaali Obay. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So, following the devastating flood in Borno State, we see that the federal government has now made 2 critical decisions. One of them is to evaluate dams across the country, and the other one is to create a disaster relief fund. And what do you make of this in terms of how it would address the issue of flooding?
Well, first, I would say it's mercy after death, because this is not the first time we are having issues with our dam. And I know definitely in the plan of every dam, in the plan of every construction, there's always an allocation or an allotment for maintenance, which we have seen over the time that our government has not paid serious attention to. But now that they are deciding to do that, I would support it and I would praise that effort. But I would want it to go beyond lip service. And setting up a disaster relief fund also is also like mercy after death, because this is not the first time. We've had several devastating floods from 2012, 2010. Different parts from that time onwards, it's been getting worse with the day. But setting up this fund in itself is a step in the right direction. Yes, creating the fund is one thing. Funding it is another thing. And we are hoping and believing and praying and hoping and trusting that there will be funds allocated to that portfolio urgently to meet the people's needs, to help them resettle, especially those people who have become refugees in their own country. So this fund, I believe, would help the people resettle quickly and get back to their life as soon as the floods ebb out. And for the issue of checking up on our dams, it should not just be one that happens when it comes to rainy season. It should be a routine checking of our dams across the country, around the country where we have dams, and our bridges also. It should go beyond just the dams. It should also extend to our bridges. It should also extend to our roads.
And Mr. Obayonju, you mentioned, you know, not just focusing on our dams, because right now there are other dams outside of Nigeria that are also problematic for us. For example, the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon that is, a lot of state governors are already raising alarm about. The Cameroon has said they're going to open that dam. It's going to be problematic for Nigeria. What should we be doing, also to address those kind of challenges of, neighboring dams or dams that from countries that border Nigeria?
Yeah, so the issue of the dams overflowing their banks or the walls that protect the water is something that is going to be on the increase because the world is still playing Ludo or playing Suwe or playing Ayu with the issue of climate change. Science have said, research have revealed that if we are to have a reduction in these disasters that are coming to the world in different forms and shapes, especially those of us in the global south, we have to take drastic effort to stop the expansion of fossil fuel industry. That is one step in the right direction that the world must take, that Nigeria, that Africa must begin to clamor for now to stop the expansion of fossil fuel industry. Because if we stop that, then we have been able to reduce at least the emission at source. And that way we have been able to solve part of the climate crisis, which is the flooding, increase in rainfall, and the like. So the first step is to take that step, put an end to the expansion of fossil fuel industry. There should be a drastic step in that direction. Then secondly, because we know this water, the rain is going to increase if we do not take action. There's need for government on both sides, because that's why we have ECOWAS, for example. Cameroon, Nigeria, they are part of that body. There should be a regulatory framework that dams across the economic country of West African nation, whatever state, should make a law, a policy that dams around this West African region and around Africa should be reinforced and strengthened. And where you have excess flow, there should be planned, because the rain, we know, for example, the rain is going to increase in July, the rain is going to increase in August. Why not start releasing this water gradually in January? Why wait till when it's July, when you have the overflow? So these are things, and this is not rocket science. The scientists who work in those dams know these things. There should be gradual release of the water so it doesn't become a problem. So that policy should be enforced around Africa, around West Africa, and in Nigeria and the bordering nations around us. So that is one step that should be taken in addition to cutting emissions.
All right. I guess he also speaks to how governments across Africa, are handling the issue of adaptation as well. But thank you so much for your time. I wish we could talk more on that. The climate environment campaigner for Environment Rights Action, Babaali Obay. Thank you.